Hey, what's up guys, this is Cody, and today I'm going to be doing a review for a movie that I've been pretty excited to see. I was really a big fan of the first film, so when I found out that they were going to be doing a sequel to it, I was, like I said, I was pretty excited and really looking forward to seeing it. Of course, I was also hesitant because, there are so many new sequels coming out, and usually sequels, they always lose, or they've always lost something that the original movie had that made the original movie good. So I was still hesitant on picking this one up, which is why it actually took me a while before I actually did pick it up. But I finally did a couple weeks ago, and I just popped it in today. And I must say, I actually really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a pretty good, solid sequel. I thought it added a lot to the story of the killer in the movie, Mick Taylor, and I think it added a lot more to the story of, this killer going around and murdering people out in the Australian outback. But the movie I'm going to be talking about is Wolf Creek 2. And, yeah, like I said, when I first heard that this was coming out, I was pretty excited about it. One thing I liked is that they actually waited a long time before they did the original movie. The original movie came out in, hang on, I have the DVD of the original. The original one came out in 2004. So it's actually been years since they did the first one. So I actually did like that they waited so long before they finally decided to do a sequel, because now when sequels come out, they usually come out about 2 years apart after the original, maybe a year apart. And when that happens, people get sick of seeing them, that's one of the main reasons why I got sick of the Saw movies or the Wrong Turn movies. They just kept doing sequel after sequel, and then you get tired of seeing them. Whereas this one, it took forever for them to do this one, and I'm really glad they did it. Even the director of the movie, who also directed the first one, even he said that right when the first Wolf Creek came out, they already had plans to do a sequel. But he was even planning on doing it within the year after the first one, and he decided not to because he knew that it wouldn't be that good of a sequel. He wanted to wait a couple years. He wanted to build up the character of Mick Taylor, build up a great script, and create a very good, unique story that is both good to the first film, but also a film that can stand on its own. And I must say, this is a really, really good, solid sequel. I think it adds a lot to the original movie. I think it's got a lot of a lot of new things to this one that I think a lot of people who were fans of the first one are really going to enjoy this. So yeah, I'm just going to give a brief description of the film, and then I'll tell you guys what I really thought about it. Now, the opening scene is kind of funny. It actually shows the highway that's in the first film, and you see Mick in his truck, driving along, and there's these two cops that are sitting there, and they end up pulling him over because he was going like 3 miles under the speed limit, and they're just basically just messing around with him. And of course, you pretty much can guess what happens to the two cops. I won't really give anything away, but I must say the way that what happens to one of the cops, it actually kind of made me laugh because it was a bit over the top. But so that's basically Mick's first scene in the film. Then in the next scene, you actually see this young couple, German couple, that are actually traveling around the outbacks of Australia, going to the Wolf Creek crater that was in the first film. And in the opening scene, they look about in their 20s. In the opening scene, you see them in a Wolf Creek backpack, hostels or whatever, and they're basically going out and partying and getting drunk, and they're getting really, getting excited to go out into the Australian outback for a couple of days. They're speaking German, so there's English subtitles at the bottom of the screen, and I think after they see the crater, they're sleeping in the tent one night, and Mick, of course, comes over, and he's telling the couple, you can't sleep here. This is not an area where where people are allowed to camp, and that you could get caught. And he basically is telling them, hey, get in the truck, and I'll take you guys into the town, so you don't get caught by the forest rangers that are out here. And of course, the guy says, no, you know what, we're fine, we'll stay out here. And of course that is not to Mick's liking, and you can pretty much guess what happens to them. Now that is just the first 20 minutes of the movie. The rest of the movie goes completely in a new direction than the first film. In the first movie, it's just a core group of characters, and you see Mick basically torturing them. In this one, there's actually one new character that comes in. His name is Ryan. He's pretty young, and he ends up finding the girl from the couple. I think the couple's name is the girl's name is Katerina, I think is how you pronounce it, and the boyfriend's name was Rutger, and she of course is hysterical from being attacked by Mick, and the guy, what's his name, Paul, that's his name, the guy Paul, he ends up taking her into his truck and trying to get her away from Mick and protect her, and that's when the fun in the movie really begins. Now, you can't really call that a spoiler because the first two characters in the movie, they're not major characters. They're basically there just to set up the main character, Paul, coming into the story. Now, that's as much as I'm going to say. Now, my own thoughts on the movie, I thought this was a pretty good, solid sequel, like I said before. I think it added a lot more to Mick's character. I've heard a lot of people say that this one is more of a gore fest than the other one, and I must say I agree, because the first Wolf Creek film, it was really slow. It had a lot of good character development of the characters coming in and, going around the Australian outback and going up to the, up to the crater, and then they get attacked by Mick. And there is gore in it, but it's not a complete gore, there's not a lot of blood in the first film, and that's what I liked about the first one. I thought it was just them being stalked mostly by Mick's character, and then in the last bit of the movie, that's when stuff really happens. So for a movie that pretty much focuses on just storyline and development in the first film, having a sequel like this, I think makes sense, because this one, it is a complete gore fest. The first death scene in the movie is completely bloody, gory, and you can really tell that you're in for just a bloody, gory good time. There's a lot of good bloody kills in this movie. It's not over the top where it's unrealistic. All the scenes, all the gore effects in this movie are actually practical. There's even a couple of car crashes in this movie. Not spoiling anything. There's actually a couple of car crashes that are all practical effects. There's really no CGI. There's only maybe one scene that you can tell is CGI. But the rest of the movie is mostly practical effects, which I really did like. I think that practical effects is where it should be, and I'm glad that they stuck to that, because the first one was realistic in that way because all the effects were practical. And I'm glad that they decided to keep this one as practical as they could. But yeah, like I said, this movie takes the story of Mick Taylor from the first one and kicks it up to another level. I'm not going to give a lot away. I will say that there's one of my favorite scenes is the character Paul being chased by Mick, and Mick is driving a semi-truck down the street, and it gets pretty it's just a chase scene in the middle of the movie, and it's really it's a really good chase scene. And I won't say how it ends, but I will say all the effects are practical, and they use real cars throughout that entire scene. But I won't give anything away on that. But there's also a scene in it where the character Paul ends up going to this old couple's house, and you're expecting. Sorry, my cat is messing around behind me. But there's Paul goes to this old couple's house, and you kind of expect it. You get a slight reminiscence of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or at least I did. But that's not how that scene turns out. I won't tell you how the scene goes on, but I will say, if that gets in your head, don't expect it to go the way that it did with that. Because when I first saw that scene, I thought that they were going to kind of do something related to it, and I kind of got a bit let down. But then when I found out that they weren't going to go in that direction, I really did enjoy it. But yeah, I could definitely recommend checking out Wolf Creek 2. I think if you enjoyed the first one, but if you wanted the first one to be a lot maybe gorier or bloodier and have a lot more things going on, then this is definitely one I'd recommend you check out, because the action starts within the first 5 minutes of the movie, and it really does get into it. I must say, though, that for people that enjoyed the first one because not a lot of stuff went on until the last half of the movie, you might not like this because this is kind of the opposite of the first one. And I like how I'll say this, they compared the first Wolf Creek to the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre in some sort of way, just by how realistic it was. So I would say the first Wolf Creek was like the first Texas Chainsaw. You didn't see a lot of gory stuff going on. You knew it was happening, but it was mostly built on suspense. Whereas Texas Chainsaw 2 is a complete gore fest, and you did see everything. So I would say Wolf Creek 2 is like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 to the first one. To the first, so like Wolf Creek is to Texas Chainsaw, or something like that. I'm not comparing the first two movies, but I just figured if you guys wanted to know like how much more gore is in this one as opposed to the first one, if you've seen the first two Texas Chainsaws, you could compare those. I'm not comparing, like I said, I'm not comparing Wolf Creek to that, but they did compare Wolf Creek a bit to the first Texas Chainsaw. I don't know, I'm sort of babbling on, but anyway, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. I would say Netflix it or Redbox it if you don't want to spend money on it. If you're worried that you might not like this, because like I said, it's pretty different from the original, but Mick Taylor's character, you know, his character is just the same as the original, just this witty guy. You know, you can tell that if he was a nice guy, you'd want to sit down and hang out with, but he's a complete psychopath. So a lot of funny scenes in this one as well. And it's also directed by the original, but it's also directed by the same director who did the original, so it still has the same feel as this, as the original one did. But yeah, I would definitely recommend Redbox in it or Netflix in it. If you want to pick it up, it's at Walmart for $10, so you know it's not a lot. And yeah, I really did enjoy this sequel. I thought it was a pretty good one, so I'd say check it out. But anyway, guys, that was my sort of rampant review of Wolf Creek 2. I know I rambled a bit in this one, but if you've seen Wolf Creek 2, definitely let me know what you think about it, and definitely let me know what you think about the first one, because I really did enjoy the first one, and I think that this one is a really good counterpart to it. So, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone for subscribing, and I'll see you guys later.